Welcome back to the Marianne Hickman Show. And boy, do I have a treat for you today, especially if you are a young man. I want you to perk up, listen up, lean forward in your seat, stop all distractions, and eyes in, lock in on this episode. I have an amazing human being, Weston Brandon, who agreed to come on the show today. And listen, I got a text from Weston right after September 10th happened. He said, listen, we have to do this episode. I have to hop on this show. If you're like me, you are cutting out all the fluff. You're only saying things that you're willing to live for and messages that you're willing to die for. I was chatting with Weston. I got so excited. I put on my nerd glasses and I was like, finally, someone else gets it. Someone else understands the physics, the metaphysics, and the reality of this whole concept of mindset and the law of attraction and all of these things. This is real stuff with real measurable effects, and I want you to know about it. So check it out. I'm no expert in podcasting. We're about 150 episodes in, and I gave up on the perfectionism of podcasting a long time ago.
Well, you try to be perfect, you lose authenticity too. So
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Okay, so let me just kick it off officially this way. Mel Robbins asked this question at the beginning of a lot of her shows, and I love it. It's such a perfect intro. If someone were to sit with you for an hour, how would they be better off?
Well, they would be a lot more confident in their ability to create the world to look the way that they want it. Like their own personal world.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they get at.
Well, and you have a pretty bold statement I was on your website this morning and looking at the books and the offerings that you have. You've been on so many stages, so many different corporations have hired you and brought you in for this message. And I need to figure out how you worded it. I just remember reading it and I was like, that's bold. That's assertive. To almost guarantee that someone can create the world that they want.
Yeah.
Right?
Force success the way that you want it to look.
Yeah. I was like, wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, so I want to get into that. But before we do, I mean, when I first heard your backstory, when we met online and I read your backstory in Connect Utah, I was like wiping away tears. I was like, what? What? So before we get into the forcing of success, I want to know where it came from. And I want everyone that hasn't met you yet to know where this came from.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, my faith is the absolute pinnacle of all of it, right? Diehard, unapologetic Christian, served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And a lot of it came from my experiences there and had some really hard experiences and some really awesome experiences. And that just solidified my faith in God and faith in Jesus Christ. And I think some of the things that I learned there was where it started. And I knew that like stuff can happen, but I'll be okay no matter what happens. You know?
Yeah.
But then get home and I decide to go into sales, which Mormon missionaries knocking on doors selling Jesus translates really well into knocking on doors selling pest control or solar or, whatever, especially in this, Utah County where we're at, there's a lot of people that do that.
Yeah. Hey, what's up? Marianne Hickman here. Listen, I'm interrupting my own show because I want to give you something. Now, you guys all want to get on more stages. I've got a free resource for you of stages that are just clamoring for guests. They need guests on a daily, weekly, sometimes monthly basis. This is my podcast database. Now, what I'm going to do is have you go to mariannehickman.com/database. Once you put in your information there, I'm going to send this to you totally for free. Open up this database. You're going to click through it, find the next podcast that's relevant to your topic, hit the application button, show up on their podcast, get in front of their people, and share your content. Remember, mariannehickman.com/database. Let's get you unlocked.
So I was like, well, that's just the natural progression of that. I'll just go do that.
Yeah.
And because I was going to school at what's now Ensign College for sales. That's what I wanted to get into. And I just had this, I was like, why am I at school doing, I can just go get baptized by fire in sales and go to door to door and figure it out. And so I dropped out of school. I don't have an associate's degree. I don't have anything.
I'm with you. I dropped out too.
I quit the college thing and just went and did door to door sales. And we did that for a year. I met my first wife, Lauren, right before we did that. We got married right before we went out. And then being separated for a while was just really emotionally difficult for both of us. We're like, I did good at the door-to-door sale thing, but I didn't want to do it again.
Yeah. No, so, I think that usually is a pattern.
Yeah, that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
It's a very, very special breed of person that does that like the rest of their life.
And a special breed of person to be married to someone who does that for the rest of their life, like goodbye for the summer, or if not more.
Yeah. So I I am a big proponent of doing door-to-door sales. I absolutely love the gauntlet that it puts you through to really refine your character. But after I got back from that, there were some other people that were more in corporate 9-to-5 kind of sales jobs. And I was like, I want a little bit more steady. So I went into software sales and I sold mechanical engineering software for a bit. That took us to Texas. My wife gets pregnant while we're there. She's diagnosed with an incompetent cervix, has my son super, super early, 26 weeks. I can hold him in my hand. And then she dies 2 weeks later because of a pulmonary embolism that came from just, bed rest, the pregnancy, everything.
Such a nightmare, man. I'm so sorry.
Then I had learned through experience one time how to force myself to be very successful and found something I was good at. And before that happened, at 23, I was making more money than anybody else that I grew up with at my same age. And they were all still in college, and I didn't have any student debt, and I was making plenty of money. So life was good. I knew where my kids were going to go to school. The vision was clear. And then suddenly the vision went up in smoke, and I had no plans to change careers at the time. I just knew, obviously I'm going to need a significant amount of time off.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got a brand new preemie baby and you're solo.
Yeah, I can't. And being in Texas, all my family's in Utah.
Yeah, and no family around. Holy cow, dude.
My in-laws were there. They were living kind of a nomad style life at the time. They had a big fancy RV. They just drive around the country. So they were there because they had the ability to be there,
Thank God.
So God bless them for doing that. But other than that, everybody else on her side of the family, on my side of the family, was all back in Utah. So all the people that want to help are there. So I'm going to move back and just move back into the basement bedroom that I graduated high school from. Thank you. And just had to kind of start over, essentially, right back to where I was. So I picked up after a few months, I got to get back into work and take care of this kid. You get a little bit of death benefits if you lose a spouse and they had a job, but it ain't
doesn't
pay a mortgage. It ain't gonna, it was enough that I could live at my parents' house and pay for the groceries that I was using and, increasing their power and water bill a little bit with a little bit of extra, but not much. So that time I started going back to work and I met my second wife kind of all in the same time frame. The way that all came together was just a miraculous story. And there's been tons of podcasts have been on telling that whole story. So you can go search that. I won't waste our time with that one.
Oh, it's not a waste of time, but we have some specific other stuff we want to hit. So.
Exactly. So going back to work, there was something busted in my head. I could not handle the stress of calling a stranger anymore.
Which is wild given how many times you've done that.
Exactly. I had spent 2 years knocking on strangers' doors, getting doors slammed in my face. And, at first, that sucked. But then you just kind of learn that it's not personal. It doesn't faze you anymore. And then going into door-to-door sales, it's the same thing. And then sales, doing stuff from a cubicle on the phone and all the time, you're just getting hung up on them or, stuff like that. And it doesn't faze you anymore. Learn how to have really good conversations with people. Made a lot of friends over the phone, actually, doing account management and stuff. But then coming back from that, I'm calling the same people in the same companies, in the same territory. I was in charge of half of the state of Oklahoma. You get it?
You've got a feedback loop. Sorry about that, guys.
I was in charge of half the state of Oklahoma, so I knew a lot of these people already. I managed their accounts, and when they need something, they call me, So I'm calling these people, but for some reason to do it, to have a sales conversation was I could not. I say you can't pick up the phone, but it was, I had a headset. I could not click the button to call. I just couldn't do it. And there were multiple times where I finally did it, and then it rang a couple times, and I'd start having a panic attack and hurry to hang up. And
what happened?
I don't.
What snapped?
I had to go to a therapist.
Yeah.
Figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And ultimately, long story short, I decided I can't do this career anymore because I don't have, the company that I'm working with does not have the bandwidth to have me as a charity case long enough to figure that out.
Man, I ran a sales floor and we had a couple of cases like that. It was hard.
Yeah.
It was so hard.
So I was like, I can't do this. So I'm going to go learn how to fix stuff so I can make money and not talk to people. My father had been very successful in the trades. So I went to trade school. But what I discovered about myself was that my brain had been trained that the worst case scenario was now likely.
Which was what?
And a worst case scenario in there was some story that would spin up in my head about, I'm going to lose this account if I talk to them. I'm going to, the irrational, crazy stuff would start going in my head and I'd just panic. Like, I can't afford to talk to them. I have to wait for them to talk to me. Like, I cannot inconvenience them. I cannot make them upset. I cannot, all these extreme social anxiety almost to calling these people. And I couldn't figure out how to quiet that.
This is probably going to sound really irreverent when you say that, but I cannot think of anyone other than Ed Helms in The Office when he's like the worst salesman on the floor. He's like, you don't want me calling these people.
Yes, that's how it felt. So then that being my identity, that is what I do. I'm very good at that. And I provide for my family by doing that. And now all of a sudden, the core identity that I have for myself as a provider and a husband, used to be husband at the time, and so all of these things that were my core identity are now gone. As a husband, as a person that makes good money and provides for my family, all these things that I was very proud of myself, I lost every single one of them. Now I have a new title that I haven't figured out what to do with yet, and that's a father, but now single father and widower. All three of these, I have no idea what to do with those. So everything that I knew is gone.
Yeah.
And trying to do what I used to know when everything else is gone it turned out to be impossible. And I could go back and do it now. It would take some time to get back into it, but I now make phone calls. I do that now for myself.
Yeah.
I cold call, I send emails trying to get speaking gigs, so it's looking back now, it's interesting that all the skills that I learned then are now coming back, full circle. I'm very blessed that I was good at that because I can remember how I did that. And, now that I've fixed the story in my head, that doesn't panic me to call somebody.
And I would wonder if I don't want to take away, yes, you were blessed, but you also worked very hard at it. It wasn't just you're suddenly good at this. And I just want to point out, if there's anyone listening that feels like sales is such a weird, sticky word because people get up their knickers in a twist about it all the time. But I think it's one of the best things I've ever done. The best thing I ever did for my kids is say, go knock doors and learn how to talk to people. It's just communication. It's finding solutions. And if you suck at that, you're not going to be good at anything. And conversely, if you're good at that, you can be good at anything, whether it's pest control or whether it's Books of Mormon or whether it's pitching yourself for stages. It's learning how to communicate and find the double win.
Yeah,
I want to underscore that for people.
It also made me exceptional at the day job that I have now. I go and fix commercial kitchen equipment sometimes, and I have to do a lot of customer service with that. So I'm helping people with their equipment and having to talk people off of ledges when they're super pissed off that their stuff's not working, so that played into the new career that I had jumped into immediately after that I've been doing now for 5 years as I'm building this speaking. I'm kind of doing two worlds,
Yeah.
And that the skills that I learned from the sales world, while I wasn't selling anything, the communication
That's it.
played into that.
That's it.
And that was giving me the space to exercise my communication skills and maintain those skills without the pressure was, I think, what I needed to start digging myself out of that and find myself again in that sense. So this is kind of a really long way to answer your question. Like, when you talk about how do you force success into your life, where did that come from?
Yeah. At what point in this journey did that become a mantra of yours?
That happened in the middle of me working this trades job, having to completely overhaul my life. I worked my ass off to get successful at this one career and did it. And I was satisfied with that. And I was on an uphill trajectory. If that never happened, I'm sure I would be making way more money than I was at the time that she passed away, but I considered myself very successful at that. And it took a lot of work to get there. But I was like, okay, in this new career, I can apply the same tenacity and the same mindset and the same everything else to become very successful at this career too. And it happened. And I immediately became the trainer for new guys that would be coming in, because I was really good at teaching them and helping them to understand stuff, the communication thing.
Back to the communication.
It's the same skill, it's just a completely different world.
Right.
And the the interesting thing started to happen was at the time that I had started this career, I had now been remarried and just barely had a second child, my daughter. And this is right when the housing market, before the interest rates like skyrocketed and everything, but we knew that was coming. So like we were renting a house at the time. We're like, we need to buy a house ASAP.
Yeah. From the
before
next
this
30 days.
go-
Yeah.
So it took us 9 months to do it, but my mother, she had read a series of books that she recommended to me that had completely changed her life and the way that she even looked at the world. And so she recommended them to me, and I started reading. The book was the Jackrabbit Factor 3-book series.
Oh, man, I haven't heard that name in probably a decade and a half.
And I
Wow.
loved those books.
Yeah.
That changed the way that I saw everything. But it made a lot of sense because as I was reading what Leslie Householder's talking about, Bob Proctor, law of vibration, all these things that are surprisingly very common in high-performing business sales, like people understand this. I had never heard of that, but I had studied very intently on electricity, magnetism, thermodynamics, like the physics
So
of
you're
the world.
you're understanding this because you're in the trade worlds already. You understand the law of thermodynamics, the law of entropy, the law, like all of these nerdy things that I actually really, really love. And now you're like, oh my gosh, this happens with humans too.
That's exactly that. That was the connection right there.
Yeah.
Like these people think that this just happens with people. I know that this happens with it's literally how we run the world.
Yeah.
Our technology. Like
Yeah.
this is how it works. And seeing how those come together. So I'm like, there's got to be more to this story. Like, I don't know anybody that's bridging these worlds. So how, like, there's got to be a bridge here. And I started digging into it and started studying, like going on ChatGPT and Google, like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I found an organization called the Heart Math Institute that studied electromagnetic frequencies coming off of people. And
I have my new rabbit hole.
I'm just, as I'm reading this and they're talking about how these electromagnetic frequencies that are coming off of people's minds and their hearts, and when they come together with other people, sometimes they amplify each other, sometimes they destroy each other. And in my perspective, I'm like, no, duh, that's how magnets work. That's like, all the electrical tools that I know, like to give you an example, a transformer is how we change voltage. It's how you get the high voltage from outside to go to low voltage for your house. And just the way a transformer works is it creates two separate electromagnets, and when this field influences this field, it starts pushing electricity this way. So there's way more that goes into that, obviously, but I had to study how that works, right? And so then when I'm reading these articles that are done by the Heart Math Institute and some other organizations too, that are like, these are amazing things that we're learning about people. And I'm like, you guys are way behind the 8 ball. We already know this is how it works. However, nobody's realized that people work the same way.
Yeah.
You know, there's a signal that goes from your brain to your heart to make it beat. Right?
Yeah, and you can measure it. If you have the right measuring tools, you can measure the electricity.
There's a completely separate electromagnetic field coming off of your heart that has absolutely nothing to do with that signal coming off your mind. We've known brainwaves are a thing for forever, right? Since probably 100 years we've been reading those. You can do scans of the brain and see emotions people are feeling, where brain activity is happening, and that's just EMFs coming off of different parts of your brain. But then they discovered some years ago that your heart does the same thing. But
I've heard this before. The heart is its own brain.
They call it the little mind in the heart.
Yeah.
Because there's neurons in your heart, not just your brain.
Yeah.
So there's a communication happening between the two. And the neurons that fire in your heart are usually firing when you're accessing deep memory and deep emotion. So there's something with the neurons in your heart that are connected. Like your consciousness is not 100% in your brain. There's part of it in your heart too, which is
biologically and physiologically.
And we can prove that. It's been proven. So as I'm reading this, I'm like, this is nuts.
Well, I saw it years ago. It was like this old VHS tape. This is how long ago it was. They put heart cells in a petri dish, living heart cells in a petri dish, and they were contracting, do that little heartbeat. But they would seek each other out. It was the wildest thing. So there was like 5 different heart cells in this petri dish through a microscope, and you watched as a time lapse, these cells sought each other out, and once they touched, they beat in sync. And that's what comes to mind when I hear you think about this, because it's not just muscle fibers that does that. That takes electromagnetic fields. It takes, this is so cool for me to put together with that video I saw probably 20 years ago.
And that is how it works, because they're measuring these electromagnetic frequencies coming off of people from several feet away, and they initially thought that it was coming off of the brain. They're like, no, those ones are coming off the heart. We can't even sense the ones off the brain from over here. Because the
Wow.
ones coming off your heart are thousands of times stronger than the ones coming off your brain.
Is this what people call the aura? Like when if you're in the crunchy granola land?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, some Chinese people or whatever that world call it, your chi. Like,
yeah,
you know, these.
yeah,
I think that everybody just has figured out different pieces of how God has made us to work,
yeah.
and they
I
just
agree
call it
with you
different
there.
things.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, like, as I'm talking about this could be like sound like new world weird stuff. Like,
But
I
this
don't.
is stuff people have known for a long
It's
time.
been a long time, and it's just interesting to me from my perspective, my religious perspective, and my spiritual perspective, studying this, and I'm just learning like this is how God has made us to work to
Yes.
influence the world around us. So then I start to realize if I understand on a much deeper level than the average Joe does how the physics side of vibration works. That's how we transfer energy. In trade school studying HVAC, I learn and I understand the science on the molecular level of how we get the heat energy in this room. We package it up and we move it outside. And that happens through vibration. That's it. That's how it works on the molecular level. They're all moving at different frequencies, and the things moving at one frequency only like to hang out with things operating the same frequency. So when they're different, they will either bounce into each other until they equalize, or they will move away from each other.
Hold on. I want to pause for just a moment there because there is someone listening, I know right now, that went through what you experienced and what I experienced when you encounter another human being that's a different frequency than you. If they are a higher frequency, they must lower their frequency and you must increase yours to meet them, which is why they don't spend a lot of time in your world because they have to meet you, right? People that are a lower frequency than us have to increase their frequency and we have to lower ours to meet them, which is why we don't like spending a lot of time around that because we don't like lowering our frequency. Think about that. I know there's people coming to your mind right now, and I don't want you to label them and I don't want you to shame them. But here's what I want you to do is think about how do I increase my frequency, which is the way I think, and we'll go into this in a moment. How do I behave to feel comfortable in the same room with people who have high vibrations? You know, this isn't just new age stuff. This is thermodynamics. This is the law of magnetism. This is like, these are real laws of physics here. This is what I want you to be thinking of. Okay, keep going.
And whether you think about it literally or you think about it metaphorically, I don't think it matters.
It's the same stuff.
Because it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, the key that people have to understand is that most people do not have their heart and their mind in sync with each other. What they want, their heart doesn't believe they can attain. Or what their heart wants, their mind, they allow logically to think is impossible. So when these things are incoherent with each other, then the frequency you send out that you can literally measure is unstable and it's chaotic.
It's confusing.
Yep, and it destroys and it negatively interferes, destructively interferes with the electromagnetic frequencies of anybody that comes in contact with it. So is it any wonder that, think of when you're a kid and you walk into your parents' bedroom and they've been fighting, but body language, you have no idea because you can't even see that.
You can pick up on
You
it.
can feel it.
You know.
Because that energy is in there.
Yeah.
That chaotic is, the static is in there, and you're picking up on some of that.
That happened when Richard and I were having a discussion that was unpretty, right? And my daughter was in the room with me. I think we were on the phone. So I was talking to him and we were using calm words and calm tones, right? If you had taken a transcript, you never would have known.
Yeah. But
she picked up on it and she gathered her phone and she left the room. And when we were done, I was like, hey, you okay? She was like, yeah, I just felt like I should get out of there. We're smart. We know this stuff, right?
There's obviously going to be some nonverbal communication, like body language and stuff that plays into your perception of people. But you can walk into a room where you cannot see anybody. But if something just happened in there, you can feel it.
Yeah.
And I know everybody listening can attest to that because we've all experienced that with our parents, with our friends, with whatever. You know what I mean? You just can tell like something not good happened here, or I don't like the vibes in here, you know? So those terms, vibes, I used to think were stupid.
It's shorthand for real metaphysical, like not even metaphysical, like actual terms, vibrational, sine waves, cone sine wave, tangent waves. That's what we're talking about.
So for all the people that because I talk to a lot of people that when I start using this kind of terminology, that you can see their eyes kind of start to roll back. They're like, I want to shut that off.
Where's your dreadlocks? You're hiding them.
Yeah. They're like, nope, you're off your rocker with that. So I'm like, okay, well, let's, as I'm studying this, and I'm not unlearned as far as scripture stuff. I'm not the greatest, but I've studied plenty, and I'm starting to draw parallels to how Jesus taught and how you actually go get what you want. So in the LDS community, James 1:5 is a pretty well-known scripture. It's the one that Joseph Smith read, right? If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
which is biblical, by the way. It's not even from the book.
Yeah, it's straight out of the New Testament. So that scripture reads, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, which giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. That word shall is used, and I like that. I circle that in my Bible. Like, it shall be given you. But the next verse is the one that I like the most, that puts this is how you make the shall happen. This is how you guarantee it. It says, if you ask in faith, believing that you will receive, nothing wavering, right? Those are the three things in verses 5 and 6. Because a man that wavereth is like a ship tossed upon the sea, right? Just goes wherever. And how do you make it, like, that nothing wavering part? As I thought about that and as I went back and read that, I underlined that too. I'm like, that for some reason jumped out at me. Like, what is this nothing waver? How do you not waver in your belief? How do you not waver in your faith when you ask for it? Because he says, if you waver in that, you won't get it.
And that's not a punishment. That's not a punitive phrase.
Right. And I used to think that it was. I'm like, oh, he's kind of stingy. Like, he really wants us to, like, no, you got to be perfect. You got to really believe me. And then you got to believe the whole time. And then if right at the end, you're like, are you sure? And I'm like, nope, you're not good enough to get this. That's the way you used to look at it.
It's almost a worthiness thing.
Yeah. And I was like, God, well, all of us, how does anybody get any prayer answered? But as I started to, as I'm thinking about these things we've just been talking about, and I understand the heart-mind coherence kind of thing, and I understand that electromagnetic frequencies or any type of frequencies, if they're out of sync, it literally pushes things away. Like, okay, if I'm wavering in my belief, then my heart and my mind are not on the same page.
Give me an example, if you can, of EMF frequencies being out of sync and pushing things away. I can think of a lot of science experiments in my mind, but is there one that...
Well, just think of a regular magnet. What happens if you flip the wrong way?
We push it away, literally pushing away, because we reverse the polarities.
You're reversing polarity, and it literally, boom, it pushes it away. So when I'm coaching people, when I'm speaking, I talk about, you want to be a magnetic person, magnetic to success, a magnetic personality. Think of, like Charlie Kirk I would argue he was one of the most magnetic personalities ever. People think magnetic just means attraction. There's two sides to that.
Polarity.
It's polarity. You push away just as much as you attract.
Yeah.
But if you become truly magnetic, you attract the things that you're in phase with, that you're congruent with, you're in harmony with, right? And you push away the things that you're not. So is it any wonder that half the country hates Charlie Kirk and half the country absolutely loves him?
He's
a very polar person. Very magnetic person. And I think in order to be successful, you have to learn how to be magnetic. You have to understand, be charged with your purpose, charged with your ideals, whatever, and move forward with those. And the reason I say that is because on the molecular level with magnetic fields, the only way that a magnetic field is even generated is a charged particle has to be in motion. Electron, an atom with a particular charge. If that particle isn't moving, then no electromagnetic field is generated. You can't measure anything. It's only when that particle is in motion that the magnetic field is generated. Why? No idea. I'm going to ask God because I'm very curious. Like, nobody has any idea why that happens. We just know that it happens, and we've studied it so much that we've learned how to harness it. That's how we turn the lights on. That's how we make the computer work. It's how anything with that electrical works. Electricity and magnetism are the same thing, right? So if I understand that, and going back to the scripture thing, I'm like, okay, how do I prove that I'm not wavering? How do I actually not waver in my belief? And I got thinking, I'm like, you know what? Whose idea was it for Peter to walk on water?
Oh, it was Peter's.
It was Peter's idea.
Yeah, it was Peter's idea. Yeah.
Whose idea was it for the woman with the issue of blood to be healed by touching it?
Oh, I love that story. She's like, if I can just do that, I'll be healed.
Right? But whose idea was it?
It was hers.
It's hers.
Absolutely her idea.
So not all because plenty of miracles, I mean, I'm not saying God can't do anything unless we decide, because obviously he can do whatever he wants.
But he's not going to take away our choice.
Yes. There's plenty of miracles that God just decides to do, and it's done. But oftentimes he leaves it up to us. And so if I'm if Peter, because when Jesus is walking across the water, all the apostles freak out, right?
Yeah,
They think it's a spirit.
They're like,
They're scared.
oh, scared.
And he says, if it's you, let me come into the water. And he says, okay, do it. You have the faith to do it, right? But how do you actually not waver in that and prove that you have the faith to? You actually step out, right? If you don't step out, then wavering.
Right.
So it takes action to prove that you're not wavering. So if I'm thinking of that, and the woman with the issue of blood, she actually had to go through the throngs of people and actually touch him for it to work. She proved that she didn't waver in her faith. She went all the way.
She acted before she had proof.
Exactly. So if I want things in life, if I have a particular goal and I pray about it, the way that I pray also changed, and we can talk about that in just a second. But the way that I make sure that I tell him I believe, but then I prove it by actually moving and trusting that he's going to put the bridge out in front of me, right? I step off the cliff. I step out of the boat to the point that, like, I will crash and burn so hard if this doesn't work out. And I'm stepping out, and that's, if you never step out, then you're letting fear control you, and your heart and your mind aren't in sync. And then is it no wonder he's like, you cannot, it's not even that I don't want to give it to you. You cannot even accept the gift if you waver.
Well, it makes me think of a couple weeks ago, I was sitting on horseback and I was trying to get my horse to turn left and the horse wasn't moving at all. Right. And we've always heard the idea you can't steer a parked car. Of course, we all know that.
Yeah.
But it came to life for me so tangibly when I'm sitting there and I need my horse to turn, but his legs aren't moving. I have to get him to move and then we can turn left. And it brought up this exact concept to where it's not even like I said, it's not punitive. God's saying, if then, that I'm going to withhold this. It's like, no, it just doesn't work that way. Like, we have to be moving in order for me to cause answers to come to you. We have to act. I love the way you put that. I love the way you said the action eliminates the waver.
Yeah. That's the only way that it eliminates the wavering, because until you act, you are wavering because you're wondering, is this going to work? Is this going to work? Well,
that is so
then
profound.
This isn't in here. The only time that finally straightens out is when you step.
Yeah. And you don't know if it's going to catch you. And sometimes it's like stepping down on the stairs and you think there's a step and it's really the next one and it makes you go, ah!
Yeah. Well, and so then, I read through the rest of the New Testament, and Peter talks a lot about faith in his epistles, right?
Yeah.
And he says it's the things that we hope for that we don't see, right? I butchered exactly how he said that, but faith is the substance of things hoped for but not seen, right?
Which are true.
Yeah. And I also get a question sometimes like, well, there's also a piece in there that says ask not amiss. Because if you ask amiss, you don't get it either.
What does ask not amiss mean?
Don't ask for the wrong things.
Oh, great. Well, how do we know? That's like doing my taxes.
You're like, oh, great. So now I have to worry that I'm asking for the wrong thing before I step off the cliff. And if I ask for the wrong thing, I'm just going to die. So that's obviously like, that's a worrisome. How do you make sure you ask not amiss? Well, I changed the way that I prayed on advice of an older mentor. And he says, if you understand God can, the whole steering a parked car thing, right? We've all heard. He says, we are to be agents unto ourselves. You think of the parable of the talents. God, Jesus gives him a talent. He says, just go multiply it. If they would have I bet you if they would have asked him how, he'd have been like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Just go do something good with it.
Legal, moral, and ethical, please.
Yeah.
But go.
And the guy that got chastised, got his taken away, was a guy that didn't do anything with it. Right? He didn't multiply his efforts. So he says, God's not going to tell you how to do everything, because I don't think our life is scripted. But if we want to make sure we ask not amiss, then maybe we should ask him hey, I'm going to go step out on this. Is this okay? Maybe just check with him first. And if it's not, he'll tell you, or you'll at least get a course correction pretty quick. Right? So he says, stop waiting for God to say yes before you actually do something, because he's not going to. Sometimes on rare occasions, you might need a little extra something, and in his mercy, he's like, I'm going to give you a good, you're okay to do this. But other times, how about you just give it a shot and see what happens? Other times, I don't think he has a plan necessarily for that, and it's up to us to just be agents unto ourselves to create good in the world, and we're rewarded for doing so. So you think of let's go with the story of the centurion whose son was healed across town, right? He comes up and he says, I want you to heal my son. And Jesus is like, great, yeah, take me to him. We can do it. And the centurion says, no, I know that if you just say that he's healed, that by the time I get back, he will be.
Yeah.
And Jesus is like, dude,
Game on.
This Roman centurion here has more faith than all of you guys have.
Yeah.
And he says, go, it's done. That wasn't Jesus' idea either.
Yeah.
But because he's like, absolutely. And then he takes off running home, sobbing happy tears. And by the time he gets home, he's healed.
He's already rejoicing before he has proof.
Exactly. He knows it's coming.
Yeah.
His heart and his mind believe 100% that it's done. So that's the way that I'm like, if I tell God that, hey, this is how I want to do something, this is how I want to create good in the world, my goal is going to bless the lives of other people. My success is going to make the world a better place. This is how I would like to do it. This is what I think I should do after studying it out in my mind. For the LDS people here, that scripture that he's talking to Oliver Cowdery, study it out in your mind first, right? And then
in your heart,
right.
Which is back to what you said, study in your mind.
He says to do that.
And your heart.
He says do both.
So that they can be congruent. I just had a...
Yeah, like you have to do both.
Yeah.
So in that scripture, the Doctrine and Covenants says, study it out in your mind and your heart. Ask if it be right. And then he tells Oliver Cowdery, then I'll give you a burning in your bosom if it's right. And if it's not, you'll forget about it, right? I also don't believe that that's how it works with everybody. I just think that's how it worked for all.
That's how he recognized it.
That's how he feels it.
Yeah.
I feel it a little bit different.
I do too. And I struggle with that one for that reason.
So
I think I'm different.
It was on my mission, somebody pointed out, he's like, Oliver Cowdery was a bosom burner. You might be a spine tingling. I was like, it's like, he's talking to him, realize the context. I'm like, okay, just ask God what you are, and then he'll tell you.
Yeah.
And that worked. And mine is, I get this sense of, well, I used to ride a lot of dirt bikes in high school, and the closest that I can sense that when I feel God talking to me is I hear it in my mind. We see that in the scriptures, that the voice of the Lord came to their mind and it spoke in their mind. And was it Elijah up on, or something? I can't remember who was up on top of the mountain, but he said the voice of the Lord wasn't in the storm, it wasn't in the earthquake, it was a still small voice. I think the word voice is used intentionally, and it's not metaphorical.
Yeah.
There's a voice that comes into your mind with actual words.
Which is so cool when you pray differently and you listen for the answer and you can write it down. And it's like scripture for you. It's the coolest thing.
And for me, sometimes I'll get an entire paragraph in an instant, but I know every single
But you know, like the whole context. It's like a chord of music that played. You heard the whole chord, but there's all these different notes.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
And it's all at the same time. So when I learned that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to decide what I want to do. I'm going to be an agent unto myself. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to study it out in my heart and my mind, decide what I'm going to do. And then I'm just going to take the plan to God. Be like, hey, this is what I want to do. If I hear nothing from you, I'm going to assume that that's permission to move forward with it.
By the way, this is great communication for people too.
Yeah.
I do this with Richard all the time. This is my plan. If I don't hear back from you by 5 o'clock, I'm going forward with this.
Yeah.
It works really, really good. He's going to jump in.
I taught you that. I taught you that.
You 100%, and it works so good. I used to use it in my
there was
9 to 5.
You had an old boss.
Oh my god!
Wouldn't you ever get back? And I was like, just tell him if I don't hear back from you, by this time I'm gonna do it. And
it worked.
It kind of forces them to have to do it, right?
Yeah, they either have to respond until you know, or be okay with the fact that you did it without hearing back, because it's on them that they didn't respond.
Which is what you mean by agent unto yourself.
Yes,
you're advocating for yourself. And then saying, God, it's your job to give me the stamp of approval, or the opposite of that for me. Yep.
And what I found that I very rarely, when I kneel down and pray like that, I very rarely get the stamp of approval in that moment. And
what do you get?
Sometimes it does. I usually get nothing. I get absolute silence.
You're like, oh, see what he does with this.
So I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. I would really appreciate your help making this work, and this is how I think it's going to work. What it usually ends up being is, as I start taking a couple steps, he'll give me a little hint. He's like, how about you try this? I'm like, ooh, that's a good one. And then I, like a little pivot and a little pivot. So he's there just giving me little hints. I do the exact same thing with my sons,
That's
with all three of my kids. Because they'll, I want them to learn a new skill. We talk about kids learning to walk, but you can also talk about my kids learning how to hit a baseball off a tee, or my kids learning how to do this. And I'm not going to sit there and swing it for him.
You can't. I won't teach him anything.
I'm going to let him do it, and I'm going to let him fall down. And then when that happens, I'm like, well, little correction here, little correction there. I think God does the same thing with us, because we're all just infants compared to him anyways. So yeah, on occasions, you might get on rare occasions when I pray, I'll get this is absolutely something I need to do. Like when I got the message that I need to do all this speed, like that came so, I needed that because it was such a scary, he's like, hey, you're over here. Now you need to go climb up this mountain way over here that looks really scary, and that was never going to be something that I was going to be like, hey, I think I want to do this. And is that okay? And if I don't hear anything, I'm just going to go climb up this mountain full of scary things. I was never going to do that. So he had to be like, slam it down and make me pivot. But from that point, he's like, okay, now that you know this is where you're going to go, figure it out.
I want to underscore this again too, because I work with I work with speakers. I work with aspiring speakers, and the speakers that have the most success are the speakers that have either that calling where they feel like, oh man, I don't know. Are you sure, God? Like this is hard. This is long. I don't know if I want to appear in front of people, but God's like, no, your message needs to be shared. You went through all of this stuff for a reason, and I gave it to you because it's your responsibility to help other people with it, and you're going to be my tools, my hands and eyes. As opposed to the people that are like, I love being in front of people. I love the spotlight. I want to be a speaker one day. And they have no credibility. They have no, it's like the 18-year-old life coach who hasn't had enough life to actually coach people. It's so ironic in a way that the people that want to speak the most usually don't experience the success if that's how they start. Those of us that feel the call and feel that we're answering the call, it's like a king who doesn't want to be king usually is the best king.
Mm-hmm.
The speakers that didn't initially want to be a speaker usually are the ones for the job, because we're not seeking the limelight. We're seeking blessing the audience.
Yeah. So you and I went to NSA Influence in Scottsdale earlier this year, right? Which is a huge conference for lots of speakers come to that. There's over 1,000 of us there. And you would think, obviously, we all know how to talk, and so there's a lot of talking going on. But at
There's
that
a lot of
same
animals
event,
in this room.
there's a separate room that nobody's allowed to talk in, because there's so many speakers that are insanely successful that are extremely introverted. And being around these people, being on stage sucks so much energy out of me. I have to go be in silence to recharge. And there are a lot of people like that.
Yes,
and
there are.
that blew my mind when I saw that. I'm like, what is that room? They're like, that you can't talk in that. That's where you go, like,
I didn't even
take a
hear about
breath.
that room.
Because nobody talks about
It's
it.
a silence room.
It's a silence room. At every single one of the NSA Influence conferences, there is a place to go for people that need a break.
I didn't. I thought just went to my hotel room.
Most people do that are staying there, which works totally fine. But there's, I stayed with some family down there.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I might have gone in there for a minute if I'd have known it was there. I didn't. Somebody pointed it out to me like on the last day.
Yeah, I didn't even know about it.
Because there were some breakout sessions I went to, and I was like, okay, I need a minute. And I'd like go sit on a bench away from people. I'm like, don't talk to me for a second.
Yep.
Not because I'm in a bad mood, but I'm just like, I need a break.
Yep.
And then come back into it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's to go along these same lines of what we were just talking about. I just attended for NSA Mountain West. We have our chapter meetings on Wednesdays once a month. And if you're a national member of NSA, then there's a separate mastermind beforehand for the national members. And Ty Bennett was leading that.
Love Ty.
And
his keynote is awesome. His boys are incredible.
So he was talking about that, and I can't speak for him and tell how much money he's making with that now. They shared some things in that mastermind that will blow your mind. What happened immediately after that?
Yeah, no kidding.
And not how more things he booked with that, but how much he upped his fee to do.
Good for him.
Like, dude's killing it.
Good
awesome.
for him, man.
And good for his boys.
Yeah.
Because they're part owners in the study that they did, so
That's
they
dope.
get like they're in the business with him, so they get their own cuts of everything. You know what I mean? So
good for them.
Just awesome. I love watching the Bennett family do their thing. But what he said in there completely changed my perspective of this whole building this speaking business thing, because
you manifested this, by the way.
I felt
you manifested this cat on my lap right now, because
right
before we started, he's like, I was at a podcast and her animals were all in the room, and now my animals. I'm blaming you, not really.
He said something that stuck out to me so much, because, and I had been kind of praying about this and getting a little, not frustrated with God, more frustrated that just the process is such a grind.
It's arduous.
It's not for the faint of heart. And I'd been through similar processes when I first started learning sales, so it's kind of familiar having to go through all of it again. But still, with how strongly I felt called to do this and how much we've invested into this, we have a mini documentary that's going to be coming out early next year that I hired a full film crew for thousands of dollars into. So like, we're deep into stuff, but we're not at the ROI point yet. It's just the
just
just
investment.
throwing everything that we can in there, and it's to the point that like I don't have another penny that I can stretch into anything, and all my time and my family sacrifice so much. So there's just so much pressure now to make it happen, which I do that on purpose because I make sure that I don't give myself an exit. If
No
I
safety
have an
net.
exit, then I will take it.
Mm-hmm.
So I burn the bridges, I burn the exits. I have no choice but to succeed, or else my family will be homeless. That's how I don't know if that's good life advice or not, but that's how
You
I
know
force
what?
myself to be successful.
I'm with you. I've used that mantra more than a couple times, and I don't recommend everybody does it.
It's not for everybody,
Yeah.
but there's a breed of person that works very well for, and those people succeed a lot faster than most people.
Mm-hmm.
And I am that kind of person. I'm just in that grind right now. But so understanding that's the kind of where my mindset's at. I'm just kind of in the kind of point. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm just getting frustrated with getting turned down and turned down and turned down and turned down. It just weighs on you for a minute. You have to kind of reset. So I go to NSA National Mastermind meeting that we have before our chapter meeting. Ty Bennett's leading it, and he's talking about everything that went into building his Ninja Keynote, right? The redefining high performance. It's been 3 years in the making for him. And he's, sharing all this stuff that he didn't obviously share at NSA, like how much went into it and all the family drama that was going on and all this stuff. I'm like, it makes me feel a little better.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, I've been speaking for 16 years, and this speech alone has taken 3 years to get to this point.
Wow.
So it's a grind. So that made me feel a little bit better too. And I've become friends with Clint Pulver, and I love Clint to death because he will tell you exactly what you need to hear, whether you like it or not.
Oh, well, he's
And
going to be
he's
on the
been-
show in a couple weeks, so I'm a little bit nervous now.
Oh, good. No, Clint is amazing. I'm so excited for you guys to see him. He has helped me so much because he wants me to succeed. So he will tell me exactly what my problem is, even though I'm focused on something else. So I would go and I'd call him and be like, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And he's like, he'd literally tell me, do not ask me that question again until you figure this out. I'm like, oh, okay.
Out, but kind of relieving at the same time.
Yes. He's like, you are not, this question, you should not be thinking about this. You need to have this figured out first. You need to have this figured out. He talks about having your Wicked keynote.
Yeah.
And Wicked, talking about like the Broadway show. He's like, Wicked has been on Broadway for years and years and years. And I think it only recently came off, but it lasts for so long.
I went and saw it on
And it's
Broadway.
the
That's the
same
only Broadway
story.
show I've seen.
So many people have seen that. Now they made a movie about it.
Yeah,
like
I
the
saw it
Wicked,
before. It's cool. I'm claiming that.
the Wicked story. He's like, that is timeless. So when he was kind of coach, and he's done this for so many other people too, but he'll probably say the same thing if you ask him. Is how do you make your message, your keynote timeless like that? How do you make it wicked? What's your Wicked keynote? And I was thinking about that a lot. I'm like, what is mine? And that's where the music kind of comes into that I started figuring out.
Mm-hmm.
But to go back, I know where people are hanging on. Like, what the heck did Ty say? So going in there with, that's where my mindset is at, kind of just in the grind. And Ty sharing whatever all the things he's done. He finally dropped this one-liner that shifted everything for me. He says, what he said before that one-liner was, if you're in here because you feel God has given you a message to share and you have to share it, you might have a screw loose, like all of us, because I think we all are a little bit insane for thinking we can do this. But I also think you absolutely should, and you should do everything you can to get it out there. But then this is what he said after that. He says, however, just because you feel called does not mean it will be easy. Just because God called you to it does not mean he's going to give it to you. He called you to it because he knows you are capable of putting up with the insane amount of work it's going to take to make it happen. He would not tell you to do that if he didn't know you were capable of that. So those that like, oh, God's told me to share this. I feel so driven to do this. And then they start going down this road and like, why isn't everybody hiring me? Like, I thought God wanted this message to be out there. He's like, yeah, but there's so much more that goes into that. Right?
Yeah.
And so when he shared that with me, I was like, I need to go repent. I was like, oh man, yeah, my head's been in the wrong space, I'm like, okay. So that made me feel so much worse, but it's so much better all in the same sentence.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's not going to get any easier at all. Okay, that's awesome. But he knows that I'm capable of doing that, and he's going to be with me the whole time that I'm doing it. And that there is a journey, there is a destination, I guess, that has to be a part of. So I'm like, okay, that part makes me feel better. So I sent him a voice note. I was like, you just changed my life again. Because other times that I went and gave my keynote concert for the very first time to Lincoln Memorial University in Tennessee.
So cool.
I bombed it. I bombed some of the music. The speaking parts were awesome, but a couple of the things.
Is that
in
the one you
music,
texted on the WhatsApp chat about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I went and like I said, the speaking portions were awesome, but then on one of the songs, I completely blanked the lyrics, and I had to apologize and shut everything down and start over in front of all these people at this university, you know. So I was like, that
There's your next
that
keynote.
panic. I'm like, oh, man, I got another story for another keynote now, you know. But after, you know, leading up to and after that, another thing that Ty Bennett says a lot is that if you treat your business casually, you'll be a casualty. That's one of his one-liners.
I heard that at the end.
And
It's so cool.
He shares in you saw him give the redefining high performance. He uses that analogy of the Navy SEALs and their mantra of you will not rise to the level of the
You never
event
rise to
or
the
whatever.
occasion.
Yeah, you will not rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your preparation.
Yep.
And I absolutely did. I had not practiced the songs enough. I had not practiced those things. So now that event has become preparation for you know, future events as they all do. But so that was heavy on my mind too. But that was the one-liner that, I guess maybe two-liner that he dropped that changed the way that I think, or at least reminded me the way that I should be thinking about my goals and as far as this business goes. And that goes to any business goal. It goes to, I think, any goal that you have is like, if you feel that this is what God wants you to do, that doesn't mean he's going to give it to you. He knows you're capable of doing it.
So this is the force word that you come up with. This is when you're, I think about going to the gym. I have to force the weight to move. It does move if I'm strong enough. And I don't think it's fair to say whatever you're building is going to be struggle the entire time. God puts these tender mercies in there. But if I think of force not as in forcing a square peg in a round hole that's just not supposed to be there, when I think of force as in a mathematical equation, force equals mass times acceleration, then you are of the force. One. Like, but you become the force to be reckoned with. You become the force that creates the good. And now I'm hearing your phrase differently, right? When you want to force things, it's kind of a God calling. You're the creator of it. You're the one that's causing the effect to take place.
I also, I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to think about that a little bit more too. But when I put that phrase out there, I do also mean like you can force yourself to be successful. But I like what you said about the square peg and round hole, that you can't force that.
I tell my son all the time, if it's not working, don't force it. You're going to break something.
Yeah, I can force myself to be successful if I know that I am aligned with it and that God is aligned with it. Once I know that, then I have no ifs, ands, or buts that it's going to work out, and I can force it to happen. Because, you know, going back to all the, I guess you could call them metaphysical laws that we're talking about, right? And understanding how God works and how he's taught us to pray and ask for things that shall be given you, right? So I can force those things to happen in my life. One of the big ones that we did was actually the house that we live in and how we got that house. So as I was initially learning some of these things and studying these things, I had read the books that my mother gave me from Leslie Householder. The Portal to Genius is my favorite one. And I'm like, wow, like my belief in the way that I see the world so differently. I'm like, I'm going to put this to the test of what I'm reading in these books, but now also my other slightly different understanding of how the world works. And I'm going to see if this actually happened.
Which is also a scriptural commandment. Prove me now herewith to see if I will not open the doors of heaven to you.
So I did it.
Yeah.
And he did. So what we did was, I teach people in my book, there's a framework in there I call Drive. And I was like, this is how you force success in your life, the way that you want to look, as you live Drive. Discover, resolve, invest, visualize, and elevate. So discover and resolve things about yourself, you know, getting your heart and your mind on the same page. That's what discover and resolve is for. Then the invest is the movement, right? Visualize is how you actually make everything else come to you. The investment is you, but you only have to go halfway if you actually become magnetic, I guess you could say, and you start to attract the other things to you. So what we did was, through the visualization part of that, some people call it manifesting or whatever, right? Wrote down in the present tense as if we already had the house. We write down what it feels like emotionally, what it feels like physically, what it looks like, what it smells like as much vivid detail as we could possibly get. And writing down things that our house has to have. And for us, we're like, okay, for us to be able to afford the mortgage, at this time, we're going to have to rent the basement out. So it has to either have an unfinished basement or already has to have maybe another kitchen down there or whatever, you know.
Mhm.
So this is what we need. And we actually wrote down that it had basement apartment. So looking back now, some of the houses that didn't work out, I'm like, well, no, it didn't work out because that's not what you wrote down. Because it didn't have that. You know, it had unfinished basement. I'm like, oh, I can turn this into a basement apartment, and some of those didn't work out. But so I write that down and then specifically insert lines expressing gratitude to God for having received it.
That's the centurion principle.
Mm-hmm.
Gratitude in advance.
Because here's going back to the Heart Math Institute. Why I did that was when the Heart Math Institute is studying these people and reading the frequencies coming off their mind and their heart, there is a couple particular, you can call it mindsets or emotions, whatever, that were super, extremely stable, very strong, and exhibited a lot further distance than others.
Unwavering, in other words.
Yes. What those, I want you to see if you can get, you might have seen me talk about this, right? But can you guess which emotions were the strongest, most stable, most consistent?
Well, and I've studied these charts. The emotion of gratitude is the highest vibrational frequency as far as emotions go.
It's actually the second highest.
Is it really?
There's one higher.
What's one?
And it's not even close. The other one is way higher.
What is it?
Authenticity.
Okay, this is a word that has been bastardized and abused recently. The word authenticity, maybe that's why.
Mhm.
It's because there's forces of darkness that want to confuse us.
Yeah.
This authenticity thing, it's become an excuse for living my truth instead of God's truth about me.
Mhm.
It's become an excuse for doing whatever I want in pursuit of my own glorification instead of glorifying God. And that has become the new definition of authenticity, which I think is totally wrong.
Mhm.
Absolutely wrong. So define authenticity that is above gratitude.
Authenticity. Well, I do think that some of those people are still being somewhat authentic to themselves, but authenticity and gratitude make you magnetic, even if it's for the wrong things, right? Even
Okay.
if it's for evil.
Okay.
Because, I mean, Hitler is used as an example all the time, right? You think he actually believed the Jews needed to die?
Oh, he believed
You
everything he
think
was
he
saying.
was being authentic with that?
He believed everything he
100%.
was saying.
He was a very magnetic personality.
Well, and to that point, and people don't like it when I say this, but you can't argue with it either. Influence, major influence. Was he a fantastic orator, especially when we talk in the world of public speaking? Clearly.
Mhm.
Did I believe in what he believed in? Absolutely not. It was horrific and horrendous, but it's like he took the math that we know works and plugged in ingredients that caused absolute destruction, which should actually, in a very 180-degree way, teach us something. It should teach us, and perhaps you're going here, that these tools work and we have an obligation to use them to
You
fight
took the
that.
words right out of my mouth. Because authenticity and gratitude are the most stable frequencies that we can exhibit. So if we attach the authenticity and the gratitude to the righteous things that we desire, then not only do we start to attract those things, but we also exhibit his help for it. And what's the word for it? We get his help for that. I'm not thinking of the right word at the moment. Because that's where the next step of drive, the elevate, comes in. If my success, my goal, what I want elevates everybody else around me, then he's all on board. If my success, my goal, blesses the lives of his children and helps him with his goal, which is to just, I believe, to bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of man.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm helping other people do that, then he's obligated to help me with that.
And he wants to.
Exactly. And it's not like I'm forcing his hand. I'm partnering with God to create the reality that I want. But on the other hand, you can partner with the wrong one.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be authentic and grateful for the wrong things and make them happen, unfortunately.
But it just proves the math works, though.
It works. It always works. It always works. So going back to the faith, belief, nothing wavering part, if we don't waver, well, let us talk about Peter for a second. Why did he start to sink when he was walking on water?
If you start to doubt, that was the waiver.
Yeah, he started looking around at the sea.
He's like,
and
no, this is really bad. This could be really bad.
Afraid.
Yeah.
Right? And he doubted that it would work. But it specifically says that he began to fear.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense to me because Heart Math Institute discovered that the most chaotic, disharmonious, and destructive frequencies, the two highest ones were doubt and fear.
Which is why haunted houses drive me crazy. I despise them. I don't go near them.
I don't like them either. My wife loves
propagate
them.
it.
But
I cannot stand them.
doubt and fear were the most destructive frequencies that pushed everything away, right? So is it any wonder that when God's telling us that we need to not waver, we need to have faith, not only is he saying like, he's not saying like, I'm not going to help you unless you do this. He's literally saying, no, this is how it works. I'm trying to teach you how to accomplish things in life, right? And then I can help you along the way. You know, I can set things out in front of you that you can find and hopefully help, you know. Like when I was teaching one of my sons to walk, we would like, oh, you want to walk over to mom? Like, okay, well, let's, you know, put something there you can grab on your way.
Yeah.
You know, just give you little smaller steps. And I think God will do that to us too. But if you understand, you know, that's how magnets work. If I have an electrical control and we call it dirty power. If you have dirty power coming in there where the frequency is not stable, things are getting weird, then it starts to affect other sensitive electrical components everywhere else on the machine and other machinery.
Mm-hmm.
So we put little ferrite, we call them EMF filters and stuff to stabilize the incoming frequencies that are kind of screwing with things. So like, you can understand, like, I already know how this works. This is how technology works, how I get machinery to work right. And I'm just learning people are the same thing. And so how do you build in your personal, I guess you call it EMF filters? How do you build in your frequency filters into your life? Like, where do you get your check-ins? Where, you know, all the things that you do to make sure that you're staying stable and that you're not allowing these other chaotic, destructive interference to screw with your mindset, to screw with what you want.
Yeah.
Right? So is it any wonder that the most successful people in life will tell you that the people you spend the most time around with are more, they impact you more in your success than almost anything else, the relationships that you build.
Yeah.
Right? If you have constructive interference, because everybody's on the higher vibration you're talking about, the higher frequency, if you hang out with those people, then you naturally not only start to operate on the higher frequency yourself, but when you work together on those things, it's like taking two magnets and stacking them on top of each other. Now it's not twice as strong. It's more than twice as strong. It's exponential. So, I mean, we could go on hours into all these
we need to do a
stuff
whole event based on physics and mathematics and
I love it.
and human personality. Like I just had this thought literally yesterday, and I don't think it's any mistake that you and I are talking, because I'm studying how sound waves affect plates of sand. I'm sure you've seen all those videos and how people move, that the sand moves according to the sound. It's like, it is so obvious when we understand the connection. And it just, the synapses have been firing in my brain for a long time on this. And you know what? It'd be a hell of a lot more fun too.
Yeah. That's where I my unique thing that some people have a hard time connecting with is that I bridge the absolute science with the absolute faith.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to atheists, I just have a ball.
Have you read Eyring's book? You would eat it up. Eyring was a physicist, I think. Eyring's dad was a physicist, and he wrote a book about faith and wavelengths and stuff. Like, I haven't read the book myself, but I'm going to read it with you, because this now we're going here. Okay, there's a question I've been dying to ask since we started texting after September 10th happened. Now, you and I live just a few minutes from UVU. This was a very real thing. There's lots of theories, and some of them are conspiracy theories and some of them are actual theories. And I don't know if we'll ever know actually what ended up taking Charlie's life.
Sure.
But I'll never forget the urgency with which you texted me. And you said, we have to do this show. We have to do this episode that we're doing right now. What propelled that text? What was on your mind and heart that day in that moment?
So originally, the audience that I wanted to speak to was young adults, specifically young adult men. That's who I've trained. That's who I've had a lot of influence over before I even started this. I'm like, that's who I can resonate with and who I feel like I need to. For some reason, that's where my heart's being pulled. That's what's hailing me, right? That's what's pulling at me. But before that happened, I didn't see a way that I could bridge what I'm so passionate about with the faith portion of it to develop these young men when going to a university, when going to a corporation, when going to an association. Like, how I'm missing the piece where I can be as authentic as I can. I feel like I'm having to pick and choose, you know? So when this happens and Charlie Kirk gets assassinated, my wife absolutely loved the guy, and she was there when it happened.
She was there.
She was there.
Cow.
So I found out before
Is she
the news
doing
found
okay?
out. She's doing much better now, yes.
Oh.
So she called me as she's running, she says, there was just a shooting. I think people are saying Charlie got hit. And she's trying to, stay calm. I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. I'm like, get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
Leave now. Because everybody's on super high, who knows. But so after that, and I'm thinking about this, all of a sudden I'm like, dude, there is evil in this world. And I have a responsibility to do something about it, to do whatever I can in my circle of influence to do about it. And I am no longer satisfied with the amount of effort that I have been putting in.
I felt the same thing.
And I'm like, I got a fire lit under my butt. And I also no longer care about being politically correct. I also no longer care about, the opinions that I have offending people.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, dude, you wrote a book explaining this and talked about the magnetic thing. I'm like, I have not been magnetic enough in the sense that it needs to be polar, because I have been too watered down. I've been too, this. And another thought that came across right before I texted you was another guy that I've been mentoring a little bit under and coaching is Dan Clark.
Oh, I love Dan.
Dan is amazing.
He's such a stud.
And
Hi, Dan.
I was supposed to be at his house a couple of days ago, but I couldn't get work off to go over there for we were going to be sharing stories with each other, and he was going to coach us on it. And
Yeah.
Dan's another one of those. He'll be like, you cannot do that on stage. There's a couple of times I just kind of winging a story, said a couple, he's like, if there are women in the room, you can't say that. Or if there's this group of people, you can't say it that way. Or you can't do this with your hands, but I love him to death. But what he said, God, I've lost my train of thought. What did he, where's it going with Dan Clark? He was very close with Charlie Kirk. He was actually appointed to be a civilian something for the Air Force Academy.
Yeah. He's flown
with Charlie Kirk.
You too. Just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Such a
I wish I remember what I was going to say about Dan Clark, because it just slipped my mind talking about him. But to go back to what we were saying, like, I felt like there's a fire lit under my butt, and I needed to. Oh, that's what it was. When I was coaching with Dan Clark, he's written a lot of music, and I was for people. He says, to go platinum, you need 1 million sales, right? That's platinum record. That means you can piss off 350 million people in this country and still go platinum. So that thought came up to my mind. I was like, I have to stop caring to get the message out to the right people. I have to be as authentically myself as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Authentic to my mission, authentic to God, authentic to everything that I believe in, and stop holding back a little bit because I'm afraid it's gonna screw up my reach. It's gonna screw up these types of things, and I'm gonna lose opportunities to speak. And I was like, well, if I lose an opportunity to speak because of something I said, then I don't want to speak for
You didn't
people.
want that opportunity. Yeah.
And I'm not the right person for them. And Jason Hewlett's another one that Jason has helped me a ton. And his career kind of went, when he went and opened for Tucker Carlson like a year ago. And now, guess what he's doing?
Oh, I bet he's all-star, man.
Megyn Kelly's doing her tour. He's touring every single one of Megyn Kelly's shows.
No
He's opening
kidding.
the entire show for all
Let's
of her stuff.
go.
So like, it's all, coming back.
Yeah.
But now he's like, I am happier now than I was even before that, because now I'm not holding it back. I'm not holding back my beliefs, not holding back my values. And
What a
the right
relief.
people. I know. I'm like, you would think that we would understand this, but we get scared.
I've given us a lot of grace as students. We're all practitioners. None of us are perfect at this. There's only ever been one perfect man that walked this earth. And we're all just students. I work with so many people that are like, oh, I should have figured this out. I teach about this stuff. How many times have we said that?
Yeah.
I teach this stuff. Well, yeah, it's because you're practicing. A surgeon practices on every patient. I know that'll probably scare you, but it's true.
Well, you say you practice law.
You practice law, you practice medicine, we practice speaking. We practice influence, we practice doing the good that we're supposed to do, and we practice authenticity.
Yeah.
And gratitude.
And
we're just getting better at it.
Things will happen. You're like, oh, I didn't realize there was a deeper level to that.
Yeah.
That I need to embrace or something like that, So all of that, like my perspective on all that is in there. And when you say practice, even though I wrote that book and finished it a few months ago, I'm already at the point I'm like, I'm missing something.
I did the same thing with my book.
I need to go write, I need to do another edition of that.
I did that after I published my book. I ended up stuffing envelopes and writing a prologue in the last remaining copies.
Yeah. And I already have a document. I'm like, I guess I'm writing another book.
Yeah.
I don't. You've written a book, the work that it takes to do that, how much goes into it. I'm like, I only wanted to do that one.
Yeah.
And I thought it was over, and I guess I'm going to have to do it again. So
Yeah.
the next one is not going to come out as fast as that one did. That one I needed to get done so I could organize the way that I think, the way that I teach, so I could get it in a packaged, easy way to communicate, not only just to read in a book, but that helped me figure out what does my keynote even look like.
Yeah. Amen to that.
It forced me to get it all down. And what is, if I'm coaching somebody, like how would I even walk them through learning this? Well, because I wrote the book, I had to figure all that out.
Yeah.
Now it's all in there, so I guess that's a message to any aspiring speakers in here. If you should write a book.
I think it's a no-brainer. You need to.
You write a book. This Ty was actually talking about that in our mastermind. So Ty Bennett with New Skin and other business things, he built a multi-million-dollar company in his 20s. He'll go and pitch himself to speak. If he says that, they don't care. He says, oh, by the way, this keynote's going to be in a book and it's released in a few months. Like, oh my gosh, okay, when's the book coming out? Like, they care way more that you've written a book than anything you've ever done with your life. And I've also realized that because my emotionally heavy story that I come from with what happened with my wife and my son. And, now we're all the way on the other end of that. I've remarried, had a couple more kids. Life is, for all intents and purposes, amazing now. And that story, I thought that was always going to be the big, like, why people hire me to speak because of that story. I'm like, turns out, nope. That is why I get booked on podcasts. That is not why people hire me to speak. People have a problem that they need solved, and if you can solve it, then that's what they want.
Amen. Amen.
You solve a problem, then you add value. My story, it is very close to me. That is my life. That does not add a whole lot of value to somebody else's. It might give them a little confidence that I can deal with some stuff too. And maybe if that's the message that needed, then yeah, that's valuable. I'm going to share that, right? But most of the time, what I learned from it is what's valuable. That's what they want to hear.
I was talking to my friend Hope about that, and she said the last thing you want is a speaker for your audience to feel sorry for you. That's not going to help them at all.
People want to hear people want to hear people speaking from scars, not wounds.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, yep.
There's a John Register gets up and he speaks at NSA Influence, another Hall of Fame speaker, amputee, Like, yeah, you can hear him talk about his story about how he was running on track and tripped over the hurdles and it twisted his leg so much that he had to amputate it. But that's not the whole speech. That's like, he'll mention a couple tiny details about that, but then the rest of his speech is like what he learned from it, what he climbed out of it, and now how you apply it to your corporation. And he has a whole framework around it. Like, that's what they want. They care about, like, the credibility piece. Like, ooh, okay, that's relevant. I see where you're coming from with this, but now I no longer want to hear that.
Exactly.
I now know it's relevant. Stop talking about that now. Talk about what's good for me, because we're all
Stop trauma dumping.
Yes, we don't want to trauma dump. So,
okay, so what advice do you have for people? Let's just say we have someone that's listening that feels the call to. It's not a spotlight call. It's almost a sacred responsibility. I feel like I went through something, whatever it was, for a reason. I'm come out of it. I'm on the other side now. If someone has that call, especially a young man, what would you tell them?
Clarity comes through committed movement.
That's a t-shirt. Someone make that a t-shirt.
That's the phrase.
What does it mean?
To get the fear out of the way, because you feel this call to do something, whether it's build a business, to speak, to move somewhere, to do whatever it is. You feel like, this is what I'm supposed to do. How do I know it's going to work? That's the question. Like, are you sure? And you're asking God, like, is this what I'm, whatever. God's only going to he's only going to say yes at the very most. Like I said, sometimes he doesn't even give you that. But if it's a big, like, this is a life shift, he's going to give you need to do this to point you in that direction. But now the movement's up to you. You are never going to get clarity on how it's going to work or where it's going to go until you start moving. You talk about the magnetic analogies, charged particle in motion, right? The things do not start coming to you to build it, to make things happen, until you're moving. Once you start moving, then things start to come to you. The right people, the right connections, the right environment, the right raw materials to start coming to you, right? So if I had to boil that book down to one sentence, that would be clarity comes through committed movement, and to just lean on that. So if you have an idea of where you're supposed to go, if you feel a call, it's in this general direction somewhere, right? But you don't know exactly where it is. Well, if you know it's generally in this direction, you now know more than 90% of the world knows about their own lives.
Ain't that the truth?
Most people have no idea what they're supposed to do with their life.
Ain't that the truth?
And they don't go looking for it. But if you know it's at least in this window somewhere, you now know that as long as you move somewhere within that window, you're moving in the right direction. You're not moving the wrong way, right? So if you know that, well, now it's time to invest. You discover some things, you resolve what you need to within yourself that are holding you back from that. Now it's to step out of the boat, jump, touch his garment, whatever analogy you want to use. Now it's time to leap. And yeah, you're not going to leap the right direction exactly, right? But you're going to get a hell of a lot closer to it now. And once you leap and you hit that, now you're like, ooh, okay, it's now no longer in this window. It's actually
a narrower field.
This window, and then you leap again. You're like, okay, now it's over here. And then by the time you find it, you're like, boom, there it is. Oh my gosh. And then you can go, you got this huge testimony of like, God's amazing. And this is all, and all these crazy things happen. A couple days later, you're going to get another call. It's going to be way out there again. And you got to do it all over again.
Congratulations.
Yep,
Yeah.
I think we're supposed to all follow Jesus' command to become more like our Father in heaven. And by getting to that point, that ain't it. Because he's so far down
he
there.
hasn't stopped either.
No.
Eternal progression means for everybody.
So as long as you get comfortable with having to leap for the rest of your existence, then you'll be okay.
That's all you need. Well, I so appreciate you moving everything around so that we could do this episode today.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you're here. I'm grateful for this book. If anyone wants a copy, where do they go?
Amazon. Or, well, actually, it'd be easier. Just go to my website.
Okay.
WestonBrandon.com/the book.
Okay. We'll put it in the show notes so we can get people.
And then talking about all the God's laws of success. I wrote an ebook for that. You just go to my website and you'll get a pop-up window right there.
That's what I saw this morning. Yep.
You can download it, and it's my perspective a little bit deeper than what we talked about here on how that works. And then I give a little worksheet like, hey, you want to start it? Here's.
Oh, sick.
Get going. So
go get it.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm telling you right now, go get what Weston has to offer. Read his book. Like if this has tickled your brain or your heart at all, or both, go get his stuff. Oh, where are you speaking next?
I will be going to Texas to speak at a widows and widowers conference.
Is your dad going to? He usually goes to a lot of them, but he doesn't go out of state a lot. Oh, he's on.
My dad usually goes to the ones in Utah and Idaho. That's about as far as he goes. Is it an LDS?
LDS Widows and Widowers Conference in
Yeah.
Texas. And I will be speaking at the one in St. George. I mean, I haven't officially lined it up, but
They'll be at that
I almost guarantee my dad will be at that one.
Yeah.
He has spoken at that one. My dad has.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's where he met his current wife, Amy, grandma.
There's so many stories like that.
They're great.
I've gotten to know, spend a lot of time in widows and widowers circles, and there's a whole. This applies to that world as well. Unfortunately, a lot of people, when they lose a spouse, lose a child, lose someone they really care about, it's really easy to get stuck in making the loss your entire identity. And now that's who you are, and that's where you stay. And
that was with divorce too. Any kind of loss.
Yeah. Loss of a business, loss of a job, loss of whatever. You just get stuck on that. And this is how you climb out of it. That's why I called it the overhaul. I was stuck in that pit. How do I climb out of that? God will not pull you out of it, but he will grab your hand and walk with you every step of the way.
Thank you. This has been so beautiful. Guys, I want you to go check out Weston's website. If you're watching on Instagram, thank you for being here with us. Wait for this. We're going to publish this episode Sunday, right? Or is it coming out the next week? Okay. So subscribe to our YouTube. If you haven't already, you can see this full episode. If you only caught part of it because you were on Instagram Live, you'll be able to see the full episode when we push it out in our emails. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for continuing to do the work, even though it's just always kicking the ball down the field, it seems like, right? But I appreciate you, man. Thank you for being here. And thank you for being here on the Marianne Hickman Show.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, what's up? Marianne Hickman here. Hey, listen, I hope you enjoyed that episode. We have some pretty amazing speakers on my podcast and, of course, more to come. If this is something that you enjoyed, guys, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. You guys know what to do. I love your comments, and I respond to every single one of them personally, not a bot or an agency. So if this is something you're enjoying, tell me about it. Tell me your gold nuggets. I want to hear from you. But here's the most important thing I want you to laser in on. I told you about the podcast database. You've probably seen me post about it all over social media. I want to make sure that you get it. So here's what I want you to do. Go to mariannehickman.com/database. Once you put all of your information in there, I'm going to send you the document. You request access to it. Boom, it's unlocked. Once you're in there, My rule of thumb is to apply to 10 podcasts a month. It's very digestible. It's very easy to do. And the database gets updated twice a week. So I want you constantly checking back in there for the next podcast that fits your audience. Thank you for being here. Much love to you, and we'll see you in the next episode.